Hello, everyone, and welcome to Project Showcase from India Foundation for the Arts. As some of you know, India Foundation for the Arts is a nationwide organization that supports and implements projects across the country in arts and culture. Other than supporting and implementing these projects, we also make it possible for the scholars, artists, researchers who are doing these projects to come and share their outcomes, their challenges, their processes with you. And we started working on these online project showcases when it was not possible for us to have these physical meetings anymore during the pandemic, March 2020. And since then, various projects have been shared on this platform. Every month we come back with one with a variety of disciplines, genres, regions that they come from, languages, as well as the various programs under our IFA's mandate, under which they get implemented. So today's showcase is a very special one because the arts practice program was reviewed a couple of years ago, and we had Justice McCarthy, Sanjay Kak, Gitanjali Rao, and Leela Samson, who looked at the program to see if it was still relevant. They reshaped and morphed the program into what they felt would be more beneficial to the field. And while doing so, they introduced a subcategory under the arts practice program called art platforms. And while my colleague Sumana after me is going to tell you a little bit about what this category is all about, we are excited that today we are going to share with you the first project that was implemented under this subcategory. Now, a couple of house rules. We all know by now, you know there is a chat box where you can discuss things, chat, make your presence felt, applaud. There is a Q&A section where if you have questions, you can put it there. And at the end of today's discussion, our guests are going to take up those questions and respond live to you. If you have friends who haven't joined us on Zoom, you can still listen to this and watch us. You can go on the live stream on the Facebook page. And I think there is a live stream also going on the Re-Cognising dance page. That is another platform. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Sumana Chandrashekar, who's my colleague at IFA. I am deeply grateful that the Sony Entertainment Fund has supported the arts practice program within which this project has been implemented. So now over to you, Sumana, to give a little bit of background on what this arts platform is and what are we going to listen to today.
Yes. Thank you, Arundhati, and a very good evening to everybody. The arts practice program is, like Arundhati has already mentioned, it's one of our flagship programs, and the current program, which is now running in its second year, it seeks to implement projects where artists expand their present range of practices in new directions. Now, the arts platforms is a category that nests under the arts practice program. You know, sometimes artists might feel the need to come together to exchange ideas, to foster new ways of expression, to generate nurturing networks that sustain their practice. And this kind of a desire may be triggered by a seeking for new artistic ideas outside of their own domain, a need to break free from a long period of solitary practice, or by an urgency to respond artistically to a particular socio-political situation. Therefore, under the arts platforms category, we have sought to build and stimulate networks and spaces, and these spaces can be both physical or online, spaces that can bring together artists within or across practices on a common ground with the aim of building solidarities, enabling creativity and sustainability of their practices. We're delighted to bring to you today this really lovely project. In fact, this is also the first project that we've supported under the arts platforms category. The project is called Re-Cognising Dance. And the idea of this project was to build a robust and stimulating conversations on several themes in Indian dance, and the main idea being the building of bridges between research, practice, theory and practice, and to bring scholars, researchers, and mentors in the field of dance together. It's my pleasure to introduce to you the two people who spearheaded Re-Cognising Dance. We have with us today Mahalakshmi Prabhakar and Aranyani Bhargav, who are both practitioners of Bharatanatyam with a deep interest in the performance, history, and theory of their practice. Mahalakshmi has trained in Bharatanatyam under Guru Lavanya Shankar. She was awarded a research grant by Parivartan for her work in dance education, and she's given talks on dance in several national and international platforms. Aranyani trained in Bharatanatyam under Guru Leela Samson, and she has performed extensively as part of dance ensembles and also as a soloist. In 2014, she founded an exploratory Bharatanatyam company known as Vyuti, and she's the recipient of the Natya Kalamani Award for her contributions in the field of dance. Welcome, Aranyani and Mahalakshmi. It's really a pleasure for us to have you both with us this evening. I thought we'll start this off as we can just have a conversation around your project. And I'd like to start off with my first question. Your project is titled Re-Cognising Dance, and it takes off from the word cognition, which is a very absorbed, experiential understanding of theory and practice and history and all that. So there's and both of you are, very rooted in your practices. Both of you have had solid training in Bharatanatyam, and there's already a certain kind of cognition, that is embodied in your practice. Now, why did you feel the need, or at what point did you feel the need to recognize your own practices, and how did this title come about?
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for having this event today, and also for the grant itself, for the arts platform support that we have received from you and Sony Entertainment Fund. So thank you so much for supporting us over this period of 15 months. So Re-Cognising Dance is the reason why we chose that name is because, yes, as you mentioned, we are cognizant of our practices and about the history of Bharatanatyam. We were, but we were also getting increasingly aware of the fact that a lot of practitioners who were very immersed in their practice and in terms of their performance had a certain idea of how they cognized the history of Bharatanatyam. And we felt that there were a lot of glaring gaps, and also a lot of misinterpretation, a lot of miscommunication of thoughts and ideas, and so the history of Bharatanatyam, we felt, it needed to be re-examined, it needed to be re-looked at, it needed to be recognized. And so that's how we began. We only started off with Bharatanatyam, and we branched out into other forms later on. But that's why we called it Re-Cognising Dance. Maha, do you want to add something to that?
I was going to say we wanted to actually recognize dance scholarship in a certain sense, and that is how we started. I don't know how many people know this. Aranyani and I started this as a database of reading material initially. We just from everything history, like it could be a YouTube talk, it could be an article in a newspaper, to a scholarly, we started doing that first. But somewhere we felt if people were going to read, they were going to do that, they would have done that already. And that's when we thought we should have these conversations and make it more accessible instead of just putting things as a database. Yeah, that's how we started.
Yeah, and just to add to that, it was also what Maha and I used to keep discussing, that there's so much that practitioners are already doing, and there's so much on their plate already that many of them may not be, I'm not saying that they aren't, but may not be inclined to pick up an academic book. And also academia, a lot of the dance scholarship, it's quite heavy. It's heavy reading. There's a lot of academic jargon involved, and understandably practitioners may not always be inclined to that sort of reading. So what we wanted to do also was to provide that same information in a different medium, and a more accessible medium, so that we could possibly encourage them then to pick up that book. Or even if they don't end up picking up that book, they still get at least a flavor of what the scholars are saying. And in that sense, we were also trying to bridge the gap between scholarship and practice.
Wonderful. So this is, of course, the broad reason as to, your engagement with scholarship and the need to bring that scholarship into your practice. But when this specific idea of recognizing dance as a platform came about, what were the specific questions, concerns that you were grappling with at that time? And what were the things that you wanted to bring into this? Were there anything like, very specific things that, you thought that this platform is a 15-month platform? Of course, it's a larger platform. I do understand that. But of that, this is one sort of a phase of that. So were there specific concerns that you were trying to address here? Apart from the more, larger concerns around practicing scholarship.
Honestly, our platform came out of the blue. Aranyani and I were complete strangers. Thanks to social media, I reached out to her. And thanks to Aranyani for responding. So, and then the friendship grew. So the major concern for us at that time was the toxicity on social media. And we found that there were only extreme opinions about the history, and getting people together for a conversation was very hard, because most of them were on Facebook comments, and there was no need to show your face or engage further. So I think the seed, the core thing that actually started this was social media and the very polarized opinions that people tend to have on social media. Also because you don't have to show your face. Whereas when we sit together on recognizing dance, everybody, we know who's there. We know so the need for having a platform, because there was nothing of this sort when we began. But it was not like there were no conversations around history. I think there were a lot of conversations, but they were largely polarized. So the seed was that. Aranyani, I'll let you take it, and I'll come back if I have to something.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think all I wanted to add to that was that, yes, I was going to say polarized conversations, and it wasn't even conversations. It was just polarized opinions being thrown at each other on any conversations that were happening. And I think conversations were happening mainly through the internet medium because of the pandemic, and because people were stuck in their homes and they weren't actually talking to each other face to face. So that therefore I think social media took an even larger role in this conversation, in this I wouldn't say conversation, but this back and forth. And what we also realized very, very strongly was that while there were two opposing sides that were just accusing each other and saying that the other's perception of history was wrong, there was no actual dialogue that was happening. There was no engagement with the idea. There was no empathy. There was no room for possibilities of a conversation in a safe manner where both sides could be heard, and where you would even be given the opportunity to either argue your point or try to explain why your perception of the history was the way it was, or even have room to, take a step back and say, okay, hang on, let me think about this. Maybe I'm wrong about how I'm thinking about this. So there was just no space for any of that. It was just attack and defense. It was going like that. And this is not just this is not our personal experience. It's just what we were seeing happening all across social media. And so that's why we found it so important to create a space where we could have conversations, difficult conversations, uncomfortable conversations, conversations where panelists or speakers don't necessarily agree with each other, conversations where speakers and Maha and I would not necessarily agree with each other at times. So, and that was the point. The point is not for all of us to come together and chat about things and pat each other on the back and say, yes, we all agree. Actually, the point was to have conversations where we disagree, but do so in a constructive way, and do so in a way where that disagreement goes somewhere and it leads to something. It leads to a learning on either side or both sides, or something that comes out of it. So that's why this platform, I think that's why we started. Right, Maha?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else to add, Maha?
No, I'll take
Yeah,
more questions
great.
and see where I want to add.
Yeah, sure. I mean, of course, we do talk about, the toxicity on social media and all, but it's also for, people like you who can really look at the sunny side of things and work with that toxicity and see if we can generate new kinds of material, new kinds of platforms, new conversations. And that's what you guys have done with Re-Cognising Dance. And that's a great thing to have, for the two of you to have come together, to have thought about a platform like this, and to have, gone through the churning, through the toxicity, and then to have produced something like this. It's wonderful. So how did you then, what was that common thread of curation? How did you curate these sessions? How did you plan for the sessions that happened? And what was that one common theme that you were looking for? I know we've talked about, these uncomfortable conversations, but actually when you were sitting down, planning your themes, planning who to invite, how did that happen? Can you tell us about that process?
So for us, planning was initially chronological in terms of who studied dance history first. So we almost tried to do this chronologically for Bharatanatyam, because we both were ourselves Bharatanatyam dancers.
Yeah, and we didn't know that we were going to end up going into other dance forms.
Yeah, we never. So honestly, Re-Cognising dance even today is growing very organically. It's because we often don't know what our next conversation is. We do have a document lying somewhere which says this for this year, but it doesn't always, because we take off from one conversation and immediately think, okay, this is more important for me to know. And it's also, a lot of it is our own interest, what we want to learn also really has affected the direction of Re-Cognising dance. But we started this off very chronologically, and the process, the motivation to curate this was, as much as we felt dancers don't have time to read or it's hard for them to engage, we felt if we provide this platform and we give them the background, maybe they will, right? So the aim to curate also is sort of send some reading material which is often behind a paywall. We requested our scholars to share at least a part of their work with us, which could be in any form, if it was predominantly reading material, but sometimes in the form of movies, sometimes in the form of documentaries, and so on. So yeah, the process was initially Bharatanatyam, social history and politics of Bharatanatyam. Slowly we moved into Odissi because we saw a lot of parallels in the history. And then Kathak, because the history of Kathak is as complicated. And the motivation for all of this was, all of this is Indian dance history, and Indian dance history is one history, and they've all informed each other. All the art forms have informed each other at some point. So I think Aranyani and I learned this on the go. We did not start knowing everything. We started this platform because we wanted to know, not because we knew things, right? And we had this need to know, and we had this need to know and need to share. So that was the process. And also the other thing was, there was no platforms were predominantly people were making presentations. We liked dialogues, and we wanted to simplify we didn't want the jargons, so we would often talk to our scholars who were very scholarly, very senior scholars. So it is even today a huge challenge for us to tell them that sometimes we would ask, interrupt and say, can you tell us what this means? It could be a very simple word. We may know this, but we want our audience to know. So it could be a simple word like anthropology, or dancers don't know or don't have to know. So we want to break this down and don't want to make the space intimidating for dancers. So really, that is the motivation for curation. Aranyani, do you want to add?
No, actually, you said it all, because yeah, I mean, this was the raison d'etre of why we started the platform. And so this remained the connecting thread for any of the events that we curated. It was just learning ourselves and sharing that knowledge, and sharing it in a way that would be accessible to as many people as possible. And it would come out of the academic circles and reach lay people and reach practitioners. And yeah, that was it. And yeah, like she said, it was also like we were going on one thread with Bharatanatyam, and then suddenly we had an opportunity to have Dr. Yashoda Thakur come and speak about the Kalavantalu tradition. So that happened, and then it slowly branched out. I mean, we very, very within a couple of months, I think, realized that if we want to really make this a platform that talks about Indian dance, we cannot restrict it just to Bharatanatyam, despite the fact that we are Bharatanatyam dancers. And that's how we branched out. And now we've had conversations on various dance forms of India, and also on various subjects and various aspects of Indian dance. I mean, even the session that we had with Donovan Robert on the pictorial aspect of dance, and the photographs and the paintings that have been taken over the years and over the centuries, actually, of hereditary practitioners and dancers and all of that. Even that was quite a different. So yeah, as Maha said, it happened organically, and one thing often led to another. So our plans kept changing. Yeah, that's how.
Can I just add another thing that we also wanted to do is, like when we called Dr. Yashoda Thakur, or the picture that you have on the flyer when we invite
Dr. Geeta.
Yeah. So we took this effort to call hereditary practitioners across the South, and we also took the effort to have conversations in Tamil or Telugu. Because we did some translations to the best of our knowledge, and we wanted them to be a part of this conversation. So that was also a part of our curatorial process, to bring people together and bring relevant people together. I mean, important stakeholders together.
Yeah. I mean, you've had also a session on the Filipino martial art, right? So, I mean, that's also another way of entering and engaging with the body, that is the moving body in Indian dance, which is very fabulous. Also, I wanted to then understand, this is, I mean, the way you've gone about, often a lot of things don't need to be planned, and they don't need to go, exactly in sort of a set manner. It's always nice to keep these channels open and see how the field responds, and that's what you've done. But that also might come with its own challenges. not having a plan, but going with things as they come in. For you, what were the big challenges of working on a platform like this? It could be in terms of curating, it could be in terms of finding the right people, finding the audience that would engage in conversations like this. And more importantly, Aranyani and Mahalakshmi, you said right at the beginning that you wanted to create a safe space. Now, that also can be a huge challenge because, this is after all an online platform, and there are different kinds of people that are going to be interacting on this platform, some known, some unknown. And then we are all trying to build this community here. So in terms of building that kind of a safe space, safe conversations, what were your challenges and how did you work through them?
Just because you're talking about the safe space, something occurred to me, and so I'll try and answer that part of the question first. So I think just from a very practical perspective, what we try to do of course, creating a safe space, it is a challenge in itself, because what may be a safe space for you may not be a safe space for me. And it's where your vulnerabilities lie, how you word things, what somebody might find offensive, somebody else may not find offensive. So in that sense, just the fact that we were calling ourselves a safe space was a challenge. But what we did try to ensure is that whoever joined the sessions, we would encourage them to tell us who they are, and especially if they wanted to speak. Of course, there was no what do you call it, a bar on having to reveal your identity. There were people who, if they wish to remain anonymous, they could always tell us beforehand that they wish to remain anonymous. But we did encourage for a dialogue, for a safe dialogue to take place, that people would come onto the screen and speak to each other as face-to-face as was possible. And another thing that we always said at the beginning, we used to make it a point to say we are a safe space. So we encourage critical conversations, we encourage disagreement, but we absolutely will not tolerate any sort of verbal attacks, whether it was an attack on the speaker, or whether it was an attack by the speaker to a viewer or between the viewers. So we were very clear that thankfully we didn't actually have to intervene, but we made it very clear that we would have zero tolerance for any sort of unconstructive or destructive conversation, and really stressed on the fact that does not mean that we're asking you all to agree with each other. Please feel free to disagree, but let's do this in a way that is constructive. So I think that's how we were attempting to create a safe space, knowing full well that it cannot be a safe space for everyone. But I think we tried really, really hard and tried to the best of our abilities with what we had to create this safe space. And I've forgotten what the first part of the question was.
No, the other challenges I was asking you about.
I'll just add to the safe space part a bit, Aranyani. So recognizing dance is also built on personal relationships, Sumana. We know our followers, almost all of them by name. And, we also come because we understand what other dancers go through and how intimidating scholarship can be. I'm not a scholar myself. It took me so long to get out of that shell to interact with scholars. So, ensuring that kind of safety was also important, to dancers to get out of that shell, because also artists are shy in that sense. At least traditionally trained Indian classical dancers are scared to interact.
Correct. So and there are prejudices on both sides, I must say.
So we built these relationships, and of course there are conversations that happen live on Zoom, but there is a lot of conversation that happens after with us as curators, which actually instills faith in the audience to come back to these conversations. right? So
Right.
that has also been the process of
Oh yeah, we used to actually have once the recording was done and the discussion was officially over. There were very often times when an informal conversation would kind of continue to take place, and a lot of interesting things happened there as well, like more questions, more conversations, banter, and yeah, just like I think that did make a very big difference in how why people kept coming back for more. Yeah.
And I think around this central thing, which is the actual event, it's so important to build this whole ecology of, conversations and some kind of a fraternity around that. And that's what feeds into this central event and then also takes from the central event, right? So that I think I get what you're saying. Also, there was, because you talked about discouragement, which is something that that is not talked about, and that is actually discouraged. We're not allowed to have those conversations, or they are like fringe topics or taboo topics. But you've actually called one section of your series. One, of course, is the discussions with the scholars, but you did have another section called the Discouraged series. What were the kinds of conversations that happened there?
Well, I mean, we had the motivation behind that was that the scholar series was covering a lot of the past and clarifying, filling in the gaps in terms of history of dance forms in India, and a lot of it was something that I mean, they were conversations about history, so it was about past practices and about what had happened maybe 50 years ago or 100 years ago or 200 years ago. But they were, of course, were very well aware of problems that currently exist in practice and performance of Indian dance forms, and also a lot of factors that discourage people from taking up dance or discourage people from pursuing it further. These are very relevant issues for current practitioners today. And so we thought that we would cover the present, the past and the present by having the scholar series as well as the discouraged series. And so the discouraged series, it covered issues of how somebody's gender or sexuality may discourage them from practicing a certain dance form in India, or how a body type might discourage people. So body shaming, the body image issue, size 0, all of that kind of stuff. Did we ever do a session on motherhood, or did we not? We did. Yeah, we did. How motherhood in India often means the end of a dance career for people. We did one very popular session was money.
Of course.
Just how expensive it is to be a classical dance.
We did 2 sessions on money, actually.
Yeah. One was actually with the financial advisor, a financial advisor who would help dancers to understand how to save money and how to invest money in the right places so that they could take their dance practice further. But one was actually about how we end up there's so many times when this whole idea of performing for free because you're getting a platform, because you're getting exposure and all of that. I mean, every Indian, at least classical dancer, has faced this argument. Why do you need money? You're getting this prestigious platform and you're getting exposure, and this will be the springboard for you to make money in the future, and that future is always just beyond your reach for the longest time. So and it does, I know that it does, and even the costs of having an Arangetram and all of those kind of things, that they are very, very seriously discouraging factors. So I think those were some of the issues that we'd covered in the discussion.
Also, for us, the motivation for Discouraged was not to make it a reality show or people come. We decided that, but we also wanted to find some sort of solutions or connect people to other people who are on the same board and can share their journeys. So, and we really discovered a lot of new problems and helped. I mean, I don't know how much we helped, but we helped people connect with others. So yeah, I think, and for me, the session in Discourage, which is really close to my heart, is managing money. There was one part where we discussed issues about making money in dance, but as dancers, we didn't know how to manage the little money we had. So,
Right.
and dancers are not savvy. So even how to file your taxes, should you file your taxes?
Right.
We
Yeah.
didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we I think covered reasonable ground in Discouraged, but there's a really long way to go because Discouraged is a very important series for us for the future.
Yeah, definitely. And there was another important session you did on injuries, dance injuries,
Oh, yes, yes.
which was, I think, much needed. Can you talk about that? Were there things that I forget who led that session. Was it just the two of you? You had somebody come in?
We had 6 panelists.
So you
Yeah,
had panelists as part of that. Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah,
we
yeah.
had so for Discouraged, the idea is not to have very scholarly or very or so to speak famous artists, but
Right.
common, I mean you and me, right?
Yes.
And people, so the idea is someone who's been injured, someone who's teaching a student who's injured, so a yoga practitioner, a physiotherapist, a nutritionist, that was the kind of curation that went into that discussion.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
yeah, Aranyani, continue.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add to that yeah, so we had physiotherapist, nutritionist, what is that? A GP, a general physician, and yeah, and they so these were all like people that also dance, but also have these professions that they are simultaneously yeah, practicing. So getting their perspectives on like, okay, what sort of nutrition is required for you to be less injured? What do you do if you do get injured? Then that's where the physiotherapist came in. The GP talked to us about like general practices, general medical practices that you can follow, and also how you should treat your body if you have gotten injured. And then we had some panelists who were not experts in the medical field, but had experienced injury and had a bad experience with it or had a good experience with being injured. So our Discouraged series are usually not led by one person. It's generally a panel of 5-6 people who all come together for a conversation.
Great. And so you've done about 12 sessions, right? So far?
Of
Or more than
Discouraged.
that?
I
Of the whole project.
The IFA or
Yeah, during the
The IFA
project, yeah.
the IFA project. I think there have been 12 sessions, right?
around including Discouraged, we've had 13 so far.
Okay.
To do 2 more this year.
So maybe you've reached about certainly more than 100 participants, right? Across these sessions.
Yeah.
We have.
Yeah.
More than
Yeah.
that.
And so what is there any particular instance or an anecdote or a particularly interesting conversation you remember from any of these sessions that you would like to share with us? Something that came as a surprise or yeah.
Something that came as a surprise is not a conversation, but something that's very special for recognizing dances. We were cited in a scholarly paper this year for a YouTube video to be cited in a Spanish. The paper was on Indian dance, but we were cited, and I think it was a very special moment for us this year. For me, that's something
nice.
and sifting through our videos for writing, doing work. So, and she again falls at this intersection of scholarship and practice between, and it came as a surprise. One fine morning, academia gave us this notification. So that was very special for
Oh,
me.
nice. That's really special.
And that reminds me of the Latin American Dance Congress, the first International Latin American Dance Congress that we were invited to speak at. That also happened. And that was also a huge surprise for us because, I mean,
Wow.
we were not expecting anything of that sort. And
Right.
that's certainly not the motivation for us to do this
Of
sort of work.
course.
We were just immersed and involved in whatever we were trying to do. And suddenly we had this opportunity to go and speak to, I mean, we didn't physically go, but to speak with a predominantly Latin American audience who were all very, very interested in and deeply, involved in the practice of Indian dance forms, all the way in Brazil and in Venezuela. Yeah, but it's speaking of conversations, I think one of the things that really stood out for Maha and me as a very special moment during one of the sessions was when Dr. Saskia Kirstenboom and Professor Frederick Axel-Marglin actually met for the first time on our platform. He had been researching on similar areas of study. Professor Marglin was researching on the Maharis in Orissa around in the 1980s. Dr. Saskia was researching on the Devadasis in Tamil Nadu. And so very similar, I mean, of course, very regionally different, but kind of similar areas of study. And they had heard about each other's work. They had read each other's work, but they had never interacted before. It was during one of the Re-Cognising dance sessions that they actually met each other, they interacted with each other, they spoke to each other, they had a long conversation, which we were all witness to as flies on the wall. But yeah, I think that definitely would be an interesting, memorable anecdote. And I think another was this little girl who attended one of our, we also did one of the other things that Re-Cognising Dance also did was a series of workshops for children on dance history, where we made it really exciting. We had crossword puzzles, and we had fill in the blanks, and we had animation, and I mean, we had like not animation, illustrations, and they had to do an activity workbook given. One of the participants of that, and this was age 10 to 14, and we had one for slightly younger children also, which was even more simplified. And one of the participants from the 10 to 14 group, Maha and I started to notice that she was attending all these very adult sessions of Re-Cognising Dance, scholar series, and here and there. And I'm so sorry, but I cannot remember even one of the that she asked.
Janani Mahalingam, yeah. So
but the questions that she asked, do you remember? Like, they were very sweet.
Yeah, no, but also that she took the effort to read the scholarly articles was very
amazing. Yeah.
And she was the only one. Like, everybody else is like, you can tell that they're all well in their, well into their adulthood, and she would come in her pavade and her tight choti and makeup and all of that, and come and sit through the entire session patiently, and then send either Maha or me a question in the private chat box. Ma'am, can I ask a question? And we'd be like, please ask a question. And then she would. I think that level of confidence that she had, and that level of curiosity that she had, I mean, I think that was a really like special moment for us, because this is what we wanted to do, like, with the workshops and everything, is to pique interest even amongst the young kids to come and see this. So if we achieve that with even one child, I think it was a major breakthrough.
Of course. I mean, to have a platform where scholars are meeting one another, where young practitioners and scholars are meeting, and this little one is coming to into a session like this to have a conversation with somebody who's worked on their subjects for like 40, 50 years is incredible.
I think what was special for me with respect to the workshops is we got children from a school who were not students of dance, right? And this was experimental, but what was
this was your other element of Re-Cognising dance, which was not part of the IFA project necessarily, right?
Yeah, not necessarily. But
Yeah, but
what
anyway, it is sort of feeding into it in some ways.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
what was special for me in those workshops were we sort of got children to see that dance history is Indian history. It's not, does not work in isolation, right? So that was also a great takeaway for us as well as the children. And so that the fact that you can use dance history as a tool itself to teach Indian history, and yeah, so
Right.
very
Fantastic. Yeah. That's amazing. I think we've already got a lot of questions, and we should give time to our audiences to interact with you all. Let's open this out for our audience. I'm sure we have questions coming in on Zoom as well as from Facebook, and maybe on your page also, where this is currently streaming. Before that, may I request Arundhati, our Executive Director, to come online here. And Arundhati, if you have questions, you've been a dancer yourself in your past life, and we hope that you will bring dance back into your life now.
Yeah, I actually, if I may, I know there are a couple of questions, but if I may ask one question that's been that I've been thinking about, from the time we've read the proposal together with Sumana and the team. It's amazing for me how time and again practitioners come together to provide something that is for the infrastructure, for the ecology, for the larger canvas of a practice. And what every time surprises me and delights me is the fact that practitioners have a sort of disciplined routine that they have to follow, right? Whether you're a musician or a dancer or an actor or a writer, and that's towards your practice. You needn't bother about ecology. You needn't bother about the environment within which your practice happens, right? That can be left to people like us, people like IFA, people like, festivals, foundations, others. But what really amazes me is that if in India in the last 10, 20 years, I can think of initiatives or groups, collectives, spaces that have come about to add to the ecology of certain practices like theatre, dance, music, 95%, I can say this closing my eyes, 95% have happened because of practitioners doing it and not because of people like us in the background. So that's where my question stems from. As practitioners, what kind of a role did you see yourselves to even imagine that this is what you should do? That you did and did it very well is for all of us to see. But how did it come to you that as practitioners, you must provide this? Because you could very happily just continue to be fabulous dancers and nothing would get impacted, right? I mean, you wouldn't lose anything in the process. So where does this kind of, yes, I'm going to call it selflessness for now, come from? It's delightful, actually.
As a practitioner, I think again that I bring this back to the curatorial process, because for me, when I attend a session, when I read anything, there is this selfishness. What's in it for me as a dancer, right? So I come from that space, and whenever when we draft our questions, we want to cater to dancers. We don't necessarily want to. The space is not necessarily for scholars, right? It's probably at people at the intersection as well, but really for me, it's from that selfish motivation, because I want to know, and so I know what others want to know.
Right. Yeah.
So that's my answer, Aranyani.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I was also going to say selfless might be a bit too generous, because yeah, for me as well, it did come from in one sense a self preservation kind of space, because I think Maha and I were very well aware of the fact that yes, you're right that we could have very well just carried on and done our own thing and focused on our practice and performance and all of this. But ultimately, I think in the long run, when you look at the larger picture, if the ecology and the environment and the infrastructure that you're talking about is out of balance, or there's something wrong in it, then I think from a very selfish perspective, you would want to kind of sort that out so that you can survive within it and so that you can thrive within it. And I think for both, I speak for Maha, I think very safely I can speak for her also, that I think for both of us, it was that understanding that there is a larger picture here. And that larger picture, it's not because we're selfless, it's because that larger picture affects us as practitioners, and that you cannot look at practice in isolation, because scholarship, I mean, this is our main thing with recognizing also, is that you cannot, scholarship is not like there and practice is there and performance is there. You know, they are all, you can't look at it in such compartmentalized sort of ways. If it has to be a holistic sort of environment, and also if it's going to be a healthy, engaging, dialogic environment, that I think the dance community really should be, ideally, then we have to look beyond our own personal practice and you know, go beyond that and try and do something for the larger infrastructure and environment, as you're saying. So I don't know, I don't think we were coming from a selfless perspective, but but yeah, I think it was also not completely
started with any motivation. It was not about selfishness, selflessness. It's just that we were curious. We wanted to create this safe space, and it just started, and there was a need for this space. And
yeah, and there was a need for dialogue around certain issues that, you know, these are not new issues, they've been talked about before. I mean, but there was a resurgence of these issues around authority, around caste, around appropriation, around ownership, around the form of Bharatanatyam itself, actually, like what is Bharatanatyam, who can perform it, who can't, why should somebody be allowed, why should somebody not be allowed. And I think it was also just the atmosphere was a bit icky. The way the conversations were happening, and I think Maha and I were just like, no.
Okay. So my second question, and after that, Sumana, if you take on the questions that we have got so far. My second question is about backlash, because, you know, we have seen, and also in not just in arts and culture, but also in activist circles, that when a complex and complicated debate is out there, it is quite easy to position yourself in a binary manner. It becomes very difficult to create space for nuanced conversation, because you suddenly get challenged with, but which side are you on? Even before people, I'm sure you've gone through this, even before people come to understand what this space is about, that first tell me whose side are you on, and then we'll have a talk. Yeah. And so my question is, given that in the last few years, this particular area has been rife with a lot of hurt and wound as well, as much as there has been these fights and debates, and, you know, sort of the icky part of it that Aranyani mentioned. What are some of the backlashes that you have faced, either individually or as, and of course, you might want to not name names, but broadly, how has the challenge part of this been? In being the sort of people saying, instead of doing this binary either or, and each of you might have your own positions as far as that is concerned, you will still provide a platform where conversation can happen. And distinguishing this personal position versus the platform where people come with their own positions and talk. How has that, so backlash is one part, but how have you managed that? That's another part.
Well, I think in terms of backlash, two things immediately come to mind. One was that controversy that I found myself embroiled in, where I was called the supporter of child trafficking, something like that, on Twitter. and my son's photo had been taken from Instagram. A screenshot had been taken from Instagram. It had been posted on Twitter, and people were saying, oh, look at her. She's so protective about her son, but she is going around glorifying child trafficking and talking about the Devadasi system as though it was some great thing. And so there was that sort of backlash, I think, that happened. And the other was, I think, denial of our existence. By certain pockets, where or like refusal to be a part, despite repeated invitations, despite you know, I mean, like they say in Hindi, "Tali do haath se bajti hai." So we would keep giving our side of the tali and not get the other side back until we realize that, okay, maybe this is not the right time, and maybe respectfully, that may not have been the right space for a certain person to actually engage at the moment, or maybe we need more time to understand how things will, you know, what it is that say the other side wants. But we were also really clear about like how we navigated this, I think, is by being very clear about that, about the fact that we are not on this side or that side. Like we used to make sure that we were making it very clear that we are moderators. We are here to listen to all sides of the story, and we want multiple perspectives to come out. And we are not here to prescribe ideas, but just to have a space where multiple ideas get thrown in, and then you decide. You get to decide what you think is right, what position you'd like to take, which side you want to be on. But our job as moderators and founders of Re-Cognising Dance is not to take sides, not to, you know, call only certain kinds of people that align with our thoughts or whatever. So we called everybody, and it was open for all. It was, you know, everybody was invited. Everybody was invited to engage in it. And we stayed very far away from our personal ideas of what we believed in or what we didn't believe in. I mean, of course, I'm sure that our personal biases and our personal opinions did come through at some point of time. And why shouldn't they? We are, after all, human beings with opinions. But as moderators, we were really, really very much about multiple perspectives, multiple conversations, multiple everything. So I think that's how we navigated it. Maha, do you want to add something to that?
I think you said it all. I don't think, I mean, we are, it's not like we aren't afraid of these challenges, Arundhati. Every time anything goes online, Aranyani and I, we think from the layout of the poster, what picture goes in, the words that are, because nuances are learned over a period of time. And we are constantly learning ourselves, and our opinions are also evolving. So I don't think we are not afraid of these challenges. We still are.
Because and sometimes you just probably just wait for, oh God, when is the next attack going to come? It is that as well, I'm sure.
Because we are all the, and we also engage in a lot of these conversations out of Re-Cognising Dance, and we get ourselves into trouble all the time. Yeah, I don't think we are not afraid, but we do what we can. And we try to be nice to everybody. Like I said, we built this space on relationships. So even if someone disagrees, we write back to them, we write emails to them, we engage with, like there is a conversation with someone that has been going on for the past 2 years at Re-Cognising Dance, and every other week, because this person continues to disagree with what happened in the conversation, and it keeps coming back to us, and we still have to
engage with that.
And but also listen to her, because she has something to say. And and our, like I said, our opinions are evolving.
Of course. Okay, Sumana, you want to take the question?
Yeah, there's a question here from Deepak Popat. Deepak is asking which Indian, this is to Aranyani, which Indian dance form has been most anthologized and most resources available for researchers?
I would say Bharatanatyam.
Yeah, I would say Bharatanatyam.
Hands down.
Yeah.
And I think other forms are catching up. with the amount of resources available and reading material available. But I think this is also tied to the history of Indian dance, and how Bharatanatyam was for some reason singled out as the dance form that they were going to project as the national dance form, the dance form that ultimately became a global dance form before the others. But I mean, originally, I think people would know Bharatanatyam, but not necessarily other Indian classical dance forms. But now I don't think that's the case anymore. But just given the fact that research on Bharatanatyam has happened for so long, and so of so many scholars, that I think for that reason, I think Bharatanatyam would be the dance form that is anthologized and resources.
But then that's what we've read the most. So
that also. Yeah, but like I said, like other forms, they are kind of coming up now. There are books on Hotriya, there are books on Manipuri now, there are books on many other, Odissi, of course.
These are also marginalized art forms, so it's not because there are no these art forms. It took longer for people to study these art forms. It's not because, like Hotriya, I think in the bigger scheme of things, in Bharatanatyam, like you said, was classicalized very early, and it became the face of Indian arts and nationalism.
Yeah.
Do we have more questions?
No,
not yet. Are there questions on Facebook?
I don't think so. Then they would have pasted it here, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Okay, shall I close?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Mahalakshmi.
Just a moment, Arundhati. So for all our viewers here, some of the sessions that happened on Re-Cognising Dance is available on their platform on YouTube, which goes by the same name. So you say Re-Cognising Dance on YouTube, you will be able to find a whole list of sessions. These are only, of course, some of the sessions, right? And there are other sessions that are behind a paywall at the moment. And these sessions will also be soon hosted on a website that is going to be completely dedicated to the work that has happened as part of this platform. So look out for the website. The website is going to happen sometime soon, right? It's going to happen in the next 2-3 months. Yeah, great. And we are looking forward to that. But in the meantime, if you want to check the YouTube videos, Re-Cognising Dance is the page you'll have to go to.
And
yes.
shared here in chat also. The YouTube.
Yes, it's been, it's shared here. Yes, thank you. Yes, Arundhati, I think we can go with you now.
Okay. So thank you, Mahalakshmi and Aranyani, for this conversation. I mean, one can't stop emphasizing how important it is to have these kind of spaces for safe and lively debates about the practices that we do and all the new questions that come up. So thanks for building that and taking time out of your practice and your other lives to actually spend so much time, energy, effort into building this. Thanks, Sumana, for putting this conversation together today. I wanted to mention that, March 2020, when we began this series of conversations with our grantees, project coordinators, scholars, artists online, we started it as Throwback Thursdays, I remember. And the first one was the Aranyani artist from Bangalore who spoke to us. It was a similar rainy day in Bangalore. And that was the first time we went online in the midst of the pandemic. Today is going to be my last project showcase, holding this together with my colleagues. As some of you know, May 31st is my last day as the executive director. And I did want to take this opportunity to thank all the artists who've been there. This is the 39th episode online. All the artists, scholars, researchers who've come here, shared their work, discussed, debated, agreed, disagreed with us. All our program officers who over time have held these conversations together across across the various projects that IFA has looked after. I would like to thank all the donors and supporters, individuals, organizations who've made possible for IFA to actually implement these projects that we do under our various programs. Our trustees who give us such a open hand actually to do what we want, what we believe in. And exactly like Re-Cognising Dance platform does, our board meetings are those kind of conversations where we agree, disagree, they guide us, but they also listen to us and our aspirations. So big thanks to all our trustees, past and present, who've enabled that. As an executive director, I have been blessed with an immensely talented and wonderful team who I have learned from a lot. And finally, the audience who keeps coming back on these evenings to spend time with us. And if they can't, they go back and listen to these recordings on YouTube and on Facebook. So a big, big thank you to all of them for being there. June, when you come back for the next project showcase, the new executive director at IFA, Menaka Rodriguez, is going to hold it together. We have worked together for 15 years, and there's an immense learning that I have from Menaka. I could not think of a better pair of hands, a better heart, or a better mind who's going to take IFA and all of us into a new journey. I know Menaka is here in the audience. All the best to her, to the future of IFA, and to the future of Project Showcase. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Arundhati. I don't know if you noticed, there were so many hearts that were floating across the screen.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
You know what the audience is saying, and you know, from all of us at IFA also, I'd really love to thank you for what you've been. While I must say this to the audience, while the team that has been looking after individual project showcases has changed, so every 3 months, 2 months, we are a different group that works on these project showcases. But I think it's Arundhati, and there are a few other people, of course, within the IFA team that are constants. And every project showcase, this is the team that is always present, and Arundhati has always been there.
No, so I must thank, I forgot to thank the people behind the screen. There's a team that works behind the screen, holding Zoom together, who've been incredible.
The communications,
the technical side, all of that. So those
all of that, but also you've been at the forefront holding these conversations month after month, and it's been amazing having you with us, Arundhati, and we look forward to of course the new series that will start with Menaka as well. And to end this session, I'd just like all of you in the audience, and maybe, you know, you could be applicants or whoever, potential applicants, please look at the arts platforms program note on our website if you are interested. It's really a very potential space where you can apply for projects like these. And since the program, this section of the program, this category of the program is actually open throughout the year, so you can reach out to us at any point and we can have a conversation and build a proposal. So we look forward to hearing from you, whatever it is, you know, as comments, feedback about this session, or if you'd also like to apply and have a project idea that could fit under the arts platforms category. So thank you very much, Mahalakshmi and Aranyani. Both of you have been amazing. More power to you. And we do wish and hope from the IFA, from all our audiences, that Re-Cognising dance as a platform goes on to do much larger things and be this compassionate space that the arts so much needs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and good evening.
I do this every time, but really thank you for all the support you've given us.
Absolutely.
Right from the time we've written this proposal, and really, I do this, but all the time I don't thank IFA enough, but I keep thanking Sumana, I think.
But there's a whole team of us, of
I'm
course.
sure, but you know, the calming effect you have on us every time we write these 20 emails. or yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true though. I mean, I would say, yeah, we would also like to take this opportunity to thank IFA for the support, because I think it was for us, for Maha and me, it was, because it was a risky kind of project, and because we were talking about uncomfortable things, and we didn't really know whether we would get support at all, and how we would sustain a platform like this. And we had such big idea. I mean, not big, but like we had like strong ideas of what we wanted to do with it, and we didn't want it to wither away. And yeah, IFA support has really helped us to sustain this platform for this period, and for us to be able to build the website and all of that. So really, really thank you from both of us for the support.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely evening, and good evening and good night to all our audience. Thank you.
Thank you.